You know what? No. The music in this game is too good not to use, and Compatech's getting a break. I played an RPG this year that absolutely blew the doors off Expedition 33. I still immensely enjoyed Claire Obscure the RPG with a long name that seems like it's actually got two interchangeable names, but certain parts of it left a lot to be desired. We'll get to that in just a bit though. But the RPG that put E33 to shame wasn't a Final Fantasy or a Dragon Quest or even a CRPG like Baldur's Gate or Wasteland. It was a little RPG Maker game that punches way, way above its weight. Greetings, bones and ghouls. We returned to Halloween in August? That just doesn't have the same ring to it. I think we're gonna have to workshop the name of Halloween in July as it's consistently spanning 2 months year on year now. Tell me in the comments your ideas on what we should call our summer of spookies. What matters is that the yearly discount on patreon.com/charlatanwonder is going strong all the way through August, so you can save big on supporting the channel while getting early access to videos, standalone cooking segments with full recipes, and more. And as you know, any yearly pledge gets a patron patch as a thank you gift, and any yearly pledge at the $5 tier or higher gets their own patron apron as an extra special thank you. Today on the possibly to be renamed Halloween in July, we have one of my new favorite RPGs. Yep, Look Outside. It's got that spooky goodness and is one hell of an RPG. I enjoyed it so much. Look Outside is a game where you should do anything but look outside because there's an XK level cognito hazard hanging out there and every little thing that perceives it just gets a little weird. You are an unemployed loser in the game, and you need to survive the next 15 days as the entity known as a visitor passes over Earth and needs to get far away enough to no longer have an influence on the life on Earth. You can try to stay in your apartment the whole 15 days playing video games and occasionally talking to your neighbors staring at you through the cracks in the walls, but the weird stuff's gonna come to you if you don't come to it, so why not head out there and meet your neighbors? I really mean it when I say this is one of my favorite RPGs in a long time. I love the music, the world, the companions, and just how wild you can get with the builds and the team comps. There are a ton of areas to explore, a bunch of different endings to get, and I swear I went back into the game after finishing my initial playthrough for this video just to get a little more specific footage of things. I blinked and I had almost played through the whole game a second time. I want to try and get the promise ending and then maybe in the near future the true final ending after that, because the creator of Look Outside just kept putting new stuff in the game. Like, this game says it came out in like early to mid 2025. I'll put the Steam release date up on the screen right now, but as recently as midway through this year, they keep updating it. We're on update 2.3 now, not even 2.0. There is so much stuff. I swear I was doing my YouTube playthrough and I happened to have YouTube on another screen, and I just happened to see that they were streaming themselves developing the game even more. At its core, Look Outside is an RPG Maker game, and I think RPG Maker gets looked down upon far too much. There's plenty of great, mechanically interesting games made with RPG Maker, and sure, there's a lot of shovelware and a lot of just outright slop pushed through RPG Maker, but that's true for all easy-to-access game engines. There's plenty of trash being slapped together in Unity or Unreal, the free version of Unreal anyway. Of course, there's going to be a ton of bad RPG Maker games because this is something that you could literally buy off the shelf for your PlayStation 2 back in the day, for your PlayStation 1. If the barrier to entry was any lower, I would have to call 811 before digging it up in my backyard. Like any engine, RPG Maker is only as good as how much work the developers are willing to put into their project, and games like Feldevec, the original Hylix, and others show that great games can be made on any system. Games like Look Outside. Look Outside is a little more traditional in its mechanics than, say, Feldevec, which forgoes leveling entirely and has you exploring, finding gear, and recruiting new team members, and battling monsters to level up. You can't really grind though, at least not in a Dragon Quest or older Pokemon game style of grinding. There's not only that ticking clock of 15 days before this is all over, so you don't want to be wasting your time, but enemies will not respawn. New enemies might appear in the place of old ones, but you can't just hang out in an area and grind encounters until your party's so over-leveled that you just flatten the next area you need to go to. Asterisk here as I review my script, there is one scenario in which you can grind respawning enemies, but by the time you get to that area, you're probably like on a challenge run or something, or intentionally just having a higher level party member help rapidly level up lower level party members that you neglected to train throughout your run. And fights are a little too intense for grinding anyway, and you're going to need to pick them wisely because you only have so many healing resources, including your ability to cook for the team, which you absolutely should be doing. Do not ignore the cooking in this game. It does a lot more than just give you free recovery. While initially presented as just needing to survive the next 15 days, you're gonna figure out pretty quickly that there's something you need to be doing before that timer runs out. Like, it's really hard to miss, and I don't consider it a spoiler that you need to seek out the astronomers and figure out if you want to help or hinder them, since it's right along the critical path. Like, short of having Toriel literally hold your hand, it cannot be much more obvious what you need to do. That's gonna be a lot of exploring, a lot of poking your head into apartments to see if the thing you need is behind the door. And you're gonna need to open a lot of those doors and see a lot of weird stuff, and I don't know how to segue into this, but eventually you will have to confront a sketchy flesh wall with a big mouth in the middle, demanding a human child. Or any child. Exploring is where you get your gear, and your gear is how you survive long enough to make it to the next area where you can look for one of the objects the astronomers dreamed about. That's what you need to be doing, and there's gonna be a lot of stuff that happens in between. You're gonna need to take care of the player character, Sam, and all his friends he makes too. There's plenty of afflictions you can get that can and will persist through fights, and a lot of stuff that just straight up kills you. Like, there are a lot of instant deaths in this game, but they're not like gotchas. They're like yeah, I probably should have thought that through and realized that looking at a photograph of the visitor through the projector would be enough to instantly kill me. Obviously, there's healing and recovering items like we mentioned earlier, but you really want to hold on to those for when you're either in the middle of a fight or deep into a dungeon and you don't want to run all the way back to your apartment before clearing it. Definitely be looting every fridge you see for ingredients so that you can heal up the team later through cooking, and additionally, the better your cooking skill gets, the more leftovers you get, which also acts as another great, cheap, disposable healing item, since they go bad in a day anyway. You'll get plenty of tonics, bandages, and first aid kits, but you're going to need to use them very carefully because later in the 2-week period, it's gonna be pretty hard of a crawl into those other areas. The sewers was a thing. Look Outside uses a system called Danger to keep you exploring for longer. The more you stay out and explore, the more danger you're in, and the more experience you get when you finally return home. Also, on all difficulties except for Easy, the Explorer mode, you can't even save your game until you hit the minimum threshold for staying out and exploring areas where there's an immediate threat to your safety. You can get a lot of experience once the end of the meter starts getting closer to the right of the screen. Like more than some boss encounters will give you, but it's called the Danger meter for a reason. Eventually, the actual goddamn shadow monsters will start appearing out of the ether to chase you down, and if that meter maxes out, the boss variant of them shows up, and it's tougher than most of the bosses you can be expected to fight along the critical path. This game has a lot of optional bosses, by the way. I think there's like nearly 100. Actually, I think there might be. I will put it on the screen. So you finally make it back to your apartment after running out of stuff you're willing to expend, and that's when you discover that Look Outside runs on Pokemon rules for XP game, or old Pokemon rules. You have to have participated in the fight to get any experience. This can either be something that you don't notice at all if you're like me and on my first run, where you're barely going to get a full party by the end of the 15 days, or quite problematic if you're like me on my second run and have a small army of weirdos living in your apartment by day 3. Thankfully, party members level caps at 20, and from what I've played in my second run, it's not too bad trying to carry a couple lobies with the player character and another high-level party member to get them up to speed. We'll talk a bit more about companions later though, because I want to give them their own section because they are that great. So unless you're playing on the easier explorer mode, you're stuck with those limited saves that are contingent on you exploring enough to have something interesting to talk to your neighbor Sybil about. You're going to need to use those carefully. Use them too often and you'll never rack up enough exploration bonus to get the levels you need. Use them too sparingly and you will get pancaked by the shadow monster boss or some other fight you wandered into and were prepared for and lose lose an hour of progress. There are some fights you can just wander into that will mulch your team in a couple turns. You never realize that you're in a super boss fight until you're a turn in and it just decimated your entire party's HP in a single attack. Running away is an option, and you're going to need to do that as the game overtly tells you early on after you barge into some guy using the bathroom. Admittedly, you might not take that warning super seriously at first, as long as you have a single other party member with you or you figure out how to craft explosives, this guy goes down quick. This will not be the case fighting the Boiler. The Boiler will rock your world even if you bring a full team of level 20s, so plan your gear loadout carefully. So when you're not starting fights you can't finish and running from the shadow monsters, you gotta figure out how to get those things the astronomers want. And even if you don't feel like doing that, the further you get into the apartment building, the better stuff you can get. And the better stuff you can get means the better you do overall. There are other goals you can work towards besides the ritual that the astronomers are trying to perform. Whatever you're going to do for an ending though, you're gonna have to start figuring things out. Even if you just wanna try and ride out the 15 days in your apartment, you're still gonna have to go out and find food or something to defend yourself with as more and more people start showing up at your door. Ironically, even though the whole game is on a timer, there are certain things that you will just need to kill time for. You can kill time by doing things like crafting, cooking, playing crossword puzzles, and video games. Video games are the best way to kill time, and when you complete them, you get a new special ability from each game. Killing time in the apartment is also how you get people to show up. People like traders that give you unique items, and potential companions, including some of the strongest in the game. One of the best companions in the game, like Helen, is a door encounter. Be careful though. As the days pass, the odds that people showing up to your door being corrupted by the visitor increase, and that can go very poorly. Now how about some of them spookies? I'm not sure how they pulled it off, but they managed to make stylized sprite work pretty freaky. There's some stuff that's front-loaded in the early game, like a couple stray jump scares and a little cinematic or two, but where Look Outside really shines in the spooky department though, outside of those sprites, is the use of tension. Areas like the first floor, or when you get to the parking lot in the basement, take advantage of how not having any idea of what's going to be on the next screen makes things tense, because you've dealt with a lot of freaky stuff to get here, and every room since this one has led to something freakier and more dangerous than the last one. So all things remaining constant, you are about to see some freaky stuff. The game has a habit of putting you in an already tense situation, such as being in an underwater apartment where there is a literal ticking clock before you drown, and then throwing a gnarly half-man, half-shark monster at you that you're totally unprepared for. Oh, and by the way, by drown, I mean encounter a super boss fight that is one of the toughest in the whole game. And since we're here, holy moly, I just love the sprite work in this game. It is that good. They're pulling off body horror, cosmic horror, clown horror, all the horrors in a 4:3 ratio. It was pretty neat to see the evolution of all the sprites as they were updated version to version, and seeing how far they've come when I inevitably started wiki diving to see how I got certain companions and what their base stats looked like level to level. It's so impressive how Look Outside makes pixel art look as scary as it does, from enemies in the back line moving up to get closer to you, and how they fit what I assume to be so many phobias in this game. There's something that'll freak out just about everyone here. There's also plenty of silly looking stuff to balance out the things, and even some nice stuff in between. I really enjoy the safer areas, like that part of the basement where all the same people are hanging out, or Mutt's Fish Fry, where I can just get a good look at people that aren't immediately trying to kill me, and how exposure to the visitor changes them, but they're still kind of the same. Definitely take the chance to talk to anyone that isn't immediately trying to kill you. And that leads me to what really does it for me for the spooky factor of Look Outside. The music is on a whole nother level. All encounters start with this tense music that seems like it's leading into the combat theme, and when you're first playing the game, you never really know who is friendly and who is about to try and eat you. The OST has a lot of punchy synths in it that make the gameplay tense but still fun feeling at the same time. Like, it's hard for me to wrap my head around it as I write this. I'm trying to think of how to describe it, and maybe up-tempo horror music? I don't know. There's a lot of tracks in the OST with a lot of areas having their own unique songs, and there's a lot of areas in this game. Some that really stuck with me are ones like Vacant, the song that's playing right now, that's a slower, more ominous version of what plays in your apartment when you're resting, that plays when you enter the warped, fleshy version of your home. Then there's the intense theme for the basement, and the combat theme that just goes so hard. The energetic synths are really what makes Look Outside stand out. Like so many other horror games come into into this usual ambient-ish tracks that are a lot of tunnel sounds, strings, and the occasional sting, and it all just feels like noise at a certain point. Like, with a lot of horror games going for this kind of music, it suffers from generification to the point where if I were to take a bunch of various background tracks from a bunch of different games and play them at random, you probably wouldn't know which one is which without looking at the title. Cooking segment time. I did a lot of cooking and look outside, and something I ended up making a lot of are the egg sandwiches, because it took me a while to figure out how to permanently recruit Ernest and Colonel Squeakums. Egg sandwiches aren't exactly the hardest thing to make, so we're gonna try a game-accurate one that's a little nicer, and one that's kind of fancy. For game accurate here, I'm going to take some liberties and assume that Sam had some basic cooking oils, or in this case a little bit of butter around his apartment, despite there being a lot of TV dinners and pizza bites compared to any other kind of food in his fridge. People actually live like this, and it worries me. The first one is going to be stupidly simple for game accuracy. We're not even getting a bowl to mix the eggs in. Based on how the sprite for the egg sandwich looks and how Sam just kind of throws everything into the big cooking pot he's got in his oven, I'm going to scramble these in the pan. So get a small pan set to medium-high on the stove, let a tablespoon of butter melt in it, maybe letting it brown just a little, and then just drop your eggs right in there. Quickly salt and pepper the eggs a bit, and then just start whisking right in the pan. If you're doing this on a non-stick pan, don't use a whisk like I do. Use a wooden spoon or a set of chopsticks. This is gonna take hardly a minute to get all scrambled and cooked up, so have that bun ready. I got myself a pack of those cheapo buns from the grocery store that aren't even in the bread aisle because I felt like that'd be accurate too. I cheated a little and slapped a slice of American cheese on this, but honest to God, it doesn't need it. Sometimes simple can be really, really good. Now let's get a little nicer. First order of business is to slice up some tomatoes nice and thick. Set them down on a couple layers of paper towel to drain, and then liberally salt and pepper the slices of tomato. These will be good to go once everything else is ready. Meanwhile, get a couple slices of bacon going in your pan and start whisking 2 eggs into a bowl. Maybe 1 if you're worried about overflow. We're gonna do something completely unnecessary here by, once our eggs are well mixed, we lightly spray down a microwave safe container. Frankly, the one I used was a little too narrow and I kind of wish I used like my slightly larger square ones. So get a bigger one that I'm using. And then just pour the eggs in, toss it in the microwave, and zap that bad boy for 30 seconds. This will get us a perfectly bun-shaped egg patty. Just keep an eye on it, since in the microwave, things like eggs have a tendency of puffing way up while cooking, but they'll eventually go back down in size as the air leaves it. Set your egg patty aside, take the bacon off the pan once it's at your desired level of doneness, and then cut it into small bun-length strips. And then, before putting everything together, do yourself a favor and let your bun toast a little in the bacon grease. Just enough to absorb that flavor and get some crispiness to it, so no more than a couple minutes tops. Now assemble your bacon, tomato, egg, and maybe a slice of cheese if you wanna, and you're good to go. Okay, let's get a little fancy. Slice and salt your tomatoes like we did before, and while that's doing its thing, peel and grate a potato like it was cheese. Then, take your shredded potato and put it in a bowl with just enough water to fully cover, and let that sit for a while with the tomato. We're doing this because it will remove excess starches from the potato. Get your bacon started like we did before, but also throw a pat of butter onto the pan with it. Once that pat of butter is melted, drain the water from your potatoes, form them into a patty, and just slap that down there next to the bacon. We want to make ourselves a nice little hash brown patty. If all goes well, the bacon and the patty should be done at around the same time, but the hash brown was a little too blonde for my taste, so it's not the end of the world if the bacon gets out before the hash. If anything, it'll just get to absorb some of that bacon grease. Once the bacon's done, however, don't forget to put your buns down and get the residual grease to toast them up right before serving. Now for your eggs, we're just going to be doing them over easy so we get that nice runny yolk. Eggs go in last and cook in all that goodness left in the skillet from everything else, and then you stack it however you please. As always, full recipes with standalone videos for cooking segments are available on patreon.com/charlatanwonder, where we're still doing Halloween and summer, where anyone who takes advantage of that discount on a yearly basis gets a year of early videos, cooking segment recipes, and also gets a patron patch as a thank you gift. And anyone who pledges annually at the $5 recipe tier or higher gets their own patron apron too. Now let's get back out there and meet some more of our neighbors. There's another thing on top of the gameplay and the music and the spookies that really draws me to look outside, and that'd be the companions. There's a lot of them to find, and they're all really interesting to recruit and explore the apartment building with. Some are going to require elaborate quests to convince them that they should join up with you. Some are bosses that you have to defeat in order to earn their respect, like Spine or Leah, the grinning beast that chases you on your first venture down to the second floor. Some just show up to your door and say, hey, can we hang out? Like Helen, one of the best damage dealing characters in the game, and based on some of the dinner table conversations you can have, she is the only thing that Leah fears. I may as well take the time to explain what didn't quite do it for me with Clair Obscur Expedition 33, as it's a nice contrast to what I really do like with Look Outside, and while I played the hell out of E33, I don't see myself making a video about it, but I still want to talk about it just a bit. The 6 people you travel with in Expedition 33 are nice enough. There's certainly a lot going on there with the overarching story, but the interactions are very limited between the characters. You get some quips while you're going to a new area that just feel kind of generic, and then you get the very walled-in relationship building scenes that function as a gateway to companion quests. Like, for real, the only time I really felt like E33's party quips felt at all like they had any sort of real personal flair to them was in the free DLC area when you go to Verso's drafts. Look Outside arguably does the same thing, but thanks to there being a ton of characters to bounce off, you'll hear them say more interesting things about the situation at hand. That's something that only that character would say, as compared to the very generic feeling comments about things in Expedition 33, which at times, due to that same downtrodden personality feeling, I kind of feel like Lune and CL are entirely interchangeable, despite them having slight differences in personality, but almost like you could swap their lines in story, and unless you were really into the game, you just wouldn't notice. If anything, maybe we just needed more SKA to really offset the gloom. But we're getting sidetracked again because we gotta talk about the gameplay stuff too. The other part where party dynamics come in for E33 versus Look Outside is that in E33, everything eventually boils down to how big of a number you can get Mael to put on the screen. There's no point in making a tank in your party because by the time you get to the late game stuff, everything one-shots everyone no matter how much you invest into building someone with as much HP and defense as possible, so you'd better start getting good at dodges and then parrying. Don't forget to double check the latency setting on your TV. By the same stroke, while you can theoretically make Lune a decent healer, it's the worst thing you can do with her because of the previously mentioned. Your late game party is going to boil down to Mael, Lune, and either Verso, who is there solely to go first and cast powerful, or you do the girl squad with CL basically doing the same thing with her foretell mechanic. Everything ends up being centered around giving Mael Medallum and seeing how absurd of a build you can make so that Stendhal does 8, 9, or even 10 figures of damage in its opening salvo. Then Lune does cleanup, and anything that survives cleanup attacks you. Then you just have to survive through the most I'm sorry Zanzibar attack patterns among the most I'm sorry Zanzibars out there, and then you do it again if somehow everything isn't dead yet by the end of parrying. It's all very ironic when you consider that every character in Clair Obscur has their own totally unique set of mechanics that everything just boils down to have the biggest beat stick possible. That's why I like Look Outside and all its companions. Look Outside lets you assemble a party, and despite it being on a much simpler engine on what is very clearly a much smaller scale than the game of the year last year, it lets you do so much more with party composition and strategy through a variety of companions you can get. My first run wasn't built around damage so much as it was built around having Ernest in the party at all time and using his skills to make us immune to every debuff possible, which really just takes the wind out of a lot of bosses' sails. And then as a bonus, Colonel Squeakum's just constantly blinding everyone so I never got hit. There are plenty of characters that can act as a tank, such as Papano or Audrey the Living Vending Machine, or you can instead build Papano as a very reliable DPS by ironically beefing up his HP stat as much as possible, which scales with his bear hug ability, and then have another beefy party member like Helen court all aggro. You can pretty effectively have a solo build where, since you don't need to divvy up resources, you just craft a ton of explosives. There are a lot, and I mean a lot, of recruitable party members. I think there's like 20. Like I said earlier, some will just come to you, some will have elaborate quests to get them in your party, some are even really subtle things like intentionally allowing roaches to enter your inventory and getting a roach infestation in your apartment, or permanently sacrificing one of your limbs to the flesh wall face so that you can raise the rat baby as your own. Don't count out Rat Child, they can get busted in the late game. Part of me succumbing to wiki diving and watching all the tutorial and deep dive videos about this game I could find was just wanting to get all the companions that I could get. Another thing Look Outside really taught me is that even in the most dire of times, I need to be a more trusting person. I didn't get a full party in my first playthrough until midway through day 6, and not because the game was being stingy with companions. I ended up turning away half a dozen party members as I unwittingly killed too much time playing video games for skills that really weren't all that helpful for my build in-game. I had more than enough for a full squad by day 2 of my second run. Part of that was knowing where to find certain companions, part of that was knowing to be more open to people coming my way, as warped encounters are more likely to happen at the latter half of the game than they are in the first few days. I still ended up getting a few warped encounters, like the corrupted version of Sophie's mom just right off the bat on day 1, but you can't win them all. I love the banter between companions, how Companoins is very much the paladin of the group, but Helen seems to know more about him than either of them are willing to talk about. How if you let Zarya and Monty hang around, they'll have a genuine heart-to-heart with Joel about being on your own, or how Ernest is somehow the least crazy member of the team despite thinking everyone is secretly working for the CIA. The banter makes you want to go out and find more companions and intentionally reload saves, if not replay the whole game like I did, just to see how different characters react to certain events. Some of them will be able to help you with certain tasks too if you have them in your party at the right time. I think I'll round out this section with telling you about a handful of my favorite party members to have around. The first of which is Audrey, the living vending machine. Audrey was a delivery person before the visitor came and got fused into the vending machine that she was around when it all happened. You can entirely miss Audrey if you just never happen to see that she's moving around when exploring the first floor, or possibly just never figure out that you can help her continue to talk and then recruit her by further exploring the apartment and seeing who has the key to her drink storage. Heck, a lot of people probably don't even realize that you can talk to Audrey. Audrey has the highest base HP in the entire game, and an entirely unique equipment system where you salvage parts of other vehicle-like things that you can turn her into a literal tank, or later on an even better healer than Companoins once you get to the garage. She's a surprisingly kind and caring person despite looking like a monstrous vending machine, and I found at times she was the moral center of the party. Not exactly a hard feat though when Leah's around. Then there's Ernest, and his buddy who fills his trinket slot, Colonel Squeakums. Ernest is kind of a mercenary of a character to start out with, where if you go to the first floor alone or with only one companion, he'll offer to join you for the day in exchange for a sandwich. Eventually, you can fight through rat hell to make him a permanent member of the team, and when I did, he became the core of my lineup. Ernest is pretty fast, and that's good because he's best when he's buffing everyone at the beginning of a round. He does have an attack called Feedback that can hit pretty hard and also hit everyone at once, but if you're just playing his songs, you're never gonna need it. Plus, at the end of most turns, you get an extra attack with Colonel Squeakums, which will most likely blind its target. Ernest is unapologetically crazy, but he'll occasionally have moments of lucidity where he's a really nice, caring guy that just had a rough life. I have no idea what the Rat Court had against him. Maybe they were secretly all feds. Lastly, there's Helen. Helen is a door encounter, and one that every instinct is telling you to turn away. But if you let her in, she will hit like a truck in combat. Despite being an overt psycho, she's fairly mild-mannered and just really wants to tend to her plants down on the first floor. Did you remember to water your plant in the bedroom? There's plenty of other companions that are probably your favorite, and I'd talk about them all if it was just that, but we gotta keep moving. Let's talk about the story a bit now. No spoilers yet. So you are Sam, or whatever you choose to make your player character be named. Sam has been unemployed for a bit and seemingly not all that inconvenienced by the orders to whatever you do, stay inside, and whatever you do, do not look outside. Unfortunately, people are looking outside. You can't even see what the racket is like across the hall from you without someone turning into eyeballs. Not everyone who gets exposed to whatever's out there gets a hankering for murder though, but enough of them do to where a trip down to the laundry room is now a dungeon crawl. So the entity that's causing this is known as the Visitor, and whatever it is, there's not much we can do to stop it. Even indirect exposure, like seeing a picture, a reflection, or even reading a written description of them is enough to turn you. Luckily, there's enough people who aren't turned or who got turned but still have their sanity intact that you can make your way through the apartment building and have a chance of surviving. Like your neighbor Sybil. They're some kind of totally not a cult that is trying to understand the visitor and maybe even had some prior knowledge of its coming before it was close enough to do serious harm to people. Each of them has some kind of dream or vision telling them about an offering they can give to the visitor that might help them commune with it. Each of these are rather elaborately described, but lucky for you, if you don't figure it out while taking a shower in your apartment, when you talk to Sybil about this stuff, she seems to know exactly what they saw in their visions. The offerings for the astronomer are the critical path of this game. You get them all and then you get onto the roof and maybe you just decide not to go to the roof. You're totally allowed to just not help them. Hell, you can kill them on the spot if you really want to. You can give them offerings that aren't quite right for the ritual or intentionally give them bad things that will utterly botch it. If you really want, you can just ignore completely and wait out the 15 days, just hanging out in your apartment waiting for this all to blow over, which heck, that ending gives you more points than the ending for botching the ritual. While you're looking for the 4 offerings for the visitor, there is so much that you can see and learn about the world and the building you're in. You can meet the head maintenance guy in the basement and learn a ton of stuff about the building's history. You can find Mutt downstairs and learn everything around you by talking to the people hanging out at the fish fry. Read news articles and look up social media from your bedroom laptop. There's a ton of thought that went into every floor of this apartment building, and every door has some kind of story behind it. I almost did my whole second playthrough of this game, not to try and get some second ending or more footage, because I got way much more than was actually useful for this video, but just to see more of this apartment and see it with all the cool companions. There's a bunch of areas I know that I either just barely made it to, like Meat World, or a ton of areas I haven't even been able to get to yet, like the 4th floor or the crossword dungeon. Heck, I think you can go to actual hell in this game, but that might just be a unique game over. Okay. Sort of spoilers time, which will make more sense if you watch through. You know what you want to do if you don't want them though. Going, gone. So everything boils down to getting onto the roof with the astronomers. This is entirely optional though. You can just do nothing and get that okay ending where you survive and the world will eventually rebuild, but it's never going to be the same and likely never fully recover, as there is no going back from having most of the world getting horribly transfigured by an eldritch entity. While they're newly formed, the Exalted Four are lucid enough to convey some of the infinite knowledge they are now in possession of to let you ask some questions you might have for them. There's a lot of things that you can ask about yourself, the visitor, what happens to the world now that everything's happened, but not nearly enough time to ask all the questions. The Exalted Four will warn you as they lose their ability to control themselves that you need to run away. Running away is indeed an option with its own unique ending. What I did, however, was go ahead and do that fight because I had the whole party at level 19 and 20, had ran out of things to do on the previous day, so I spent the whole night burning through all the excess materials I picked up, making high damage explosives, and my whole party was just telling me, yeah, let's kill this guy. And who am I to say no to Ernest and Helen? I flattened the Exalted Four and then got to meet the visitor itself. There's not a lot you can really gain from talking to the visitor. However, you can choose to let it allow you to fully perceive it, and that will be very, very bad for you and also very bad for everyone else. There's another ending though, something you'll catch on to if you're paying attention. Sybil always seems to know about what exactly it is that each of the other astronomers are looking for. Sybil seems pretty knowledgeable about exoteric stuff too. Well, that's because Sybil was the 5th astronomer. There's a sequence you can unlock by finding all the items for the perfect ritual and talking to all the astronomers in the right order to get it out of them that she was the 5th member of their group and got a little too obsessed with the visitor. You can confront her about this, figure out that she wiped her own memory, and restore it by defeating her. Then she turns into a super boss living in the meat world. She can be weakened into being able to defeat by going into the meat world and defeating all the organs that will later try to merge into her. You need to do that fast, so probably setting aside an entire day from the crack of dawn to just boss rush all of them, because they will regenerate in a set number of hours depending on your difficulty. Mind you, merely discovering an entry point into the meat world and then finding one of the iris keys to enter through that doorway is a huge ordeal in and of itself, and you will need to find quite a few entry points and keys to get in because it's not all connected. It's good to go in there though, because even if you aren't going for the promise ending or anything else related to Sybil's true form, some of the best weapons in the game can be found in there after beating bosses. Following through on this route gives you the option to get the promise ending, which allows you to keep the Exalted Four sane to where they use their power to save what's left of the world. This is also the ending where you get an epilogue for all the party members you found along the way. these aren't even nearly all the endings or even the true final ending. I didn't even dream of getting the true final ending though for this video, because on top of really needing to know what you're doing in the game overall, you need to have some pretty good luck and have the video game salesman come early in the game, have the money to purchase the most expensive game he has, know not to trade it for anything he offers you when he asks for it back, and then giving up at least 2, likely 3 days of your time to get through the single longest game by far and learn a skill that is entirely unusable until you get to the final confrontation at the rooftop. That's the heavily abridged version of all the stuff you need to do for the true final ending. There's even an ending involving that masked guy that follows you around, and a few joke endings too. Last I checked, I think there's presently 13 different endings for Look Outside, and a lot of them require you following totally different paths. That's great though, as it gives me an excuse to replay the game more. I love Look Outside. Frankly, it's nuts that they're only asking for $10 for this game, and if there was one game out of any of the Halloween and Summerween that I suggest you get this year, it'd be this one. Not just because of all the bang for your buck you get, but also it's just that good. I think the devs are done updating the game, at least for now, and are working on the game that was referenced a lot in Look Outside, Kingdoms of the Dump. So I think I'm gonna check out that one too. Look Outside is one of those games that reminds you why people love RPGs so much and how much of a game an RPG can be. It's the kind of game that you stay up late playing, and the kind of game where at first you have no idea what you're doing or what you're going to do for that many days, but later on you start to panic as you realize there's only so much stuff you'll be able to do in the 15 days you get, and you can't nearly do everything you want to try in one run. It's a game that reminds you that there are still passionate devs out there making great games that aren't just purely numbers-driven slop. I hope they keep making games like this. The special on the Patreon is still going strong, and I'm gonna keep it going all the way until September. So go on over to patreon.com/charlatanwonder, where all yearly pledges are discounted, and any yearly pledge gets a special patron patch as a thank you gift. And any yearly pledge at the $5 tier or higher gets you your own patron apron too. And if Patreon isn't your thing, I've got YouTube memberships and Ko-Fi, so you can support me any way you wanna. Heck, just watching this video is supporting me, and I thank you so much for it. If you aren't able to do any sort of pledge right now, things like liking, commenting, and sharing these videos with your friends does help me a great deal, as lately YouTube's algorithm has been an extremely hostile place. I've been getting a lot of complaints lately that YouTube just straight up isn't showing people who are subscribed and notified for my videos when they come out. So any help I can get is so much appreciated. So the next and final video of the possibly to be renamed Halloween in July is one that I've been kind of putting off. But it's one that you've been waiting for, and one that I know I can't put off any longer because all possible developments about the game have came and gone. Yep, we're doing VTMB2. Oh boy, that's gonna hurt. Let's sign off. Remember that no matter what you do, be it photography, painting, or making music with your rat buddy, what you do isn't content. It's art. Art is special and shouldn't be reduced down to content. Your art is important because it is the sum of all your hopes, skills, and aspirations, and means something because you mean something. So get out there and fight against the contentification of everything by fighting for your art. Stay saucy.
Behold, the boy has claimed the sheets. Frisk, are you a sheet boy? Alright, the lighting is really weird on this. Like in my own eyes, it looks a lot less intense. Maybe the boy just needs some pets. Scritch. Are you just annoyed that I am bothering you in your sheet time? What saucy thoughts do you have? Nope, I guess I'm not. I get it, you just want your uninterrupted, fresh laundry time. Well, too bad, I'm gonna wobble ya, you wobbly boy. Wobble, 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 wobble.